Rushmore, a 1998 American high school comedy, and director Wes Anderson's second feature film following '96's Bottle Rocket, focuses on one Max Fisher. Max is a narcissistic high schooler who has a flair for the creative and the eccentric.
He's one of the worst students we've got.
Whilst on the verge of being kicked out of his beloved Rushmore High School, Max is determined more than ever, this time to win the hand of one of his teachers. In the Wes Anderson collection essay novel, writer Matt Zoller Seitz says simply, "There are few perfect films. Rushmore is one of them." After a comical back and forth between Max Fisher and Herman Bloom, the two have a chance meeting in an elevator. Clearly beaten, Bloom simply confesses,
I'm a little bit lonely these days.
Max has won, having broken this man, but doesn't get any of the satisfaction that he first thought he would. Herman leaves the lift and Max to dwell. This right here, this is my favourite scene of Rushmore. By this point, Bloom's wife has left, having been informed of his infidelity, and Miss Cross is no longer in the picture either. Adding insult to injury, surrogate son Max couldn't be further away from him either right now. Whilst Rushmore will more than happily juggle, and successfully keep balance of no less, an often cartoonish tone inside the otherwise high school coming-of-age movie, this scene is restrained and follows after the one-upping montage as the two often physically try and hurt one another. Said montage has shades of Looney Tunes and Bugs vs. Elmer Fudd, only so far away from someone putting up a picket sign claiming some ridiculous treasure. To frame this scene in a claustrophobic elevator following such carnage and away from the outside world, ironically gives you that space that we require as an audience. It reminds you of exactly where these characters stand, and in this case, together Max and Herman are quite literally at the bottom. For Herman, emotionally, and for Max perhaps through his sense of decision-making and taste. This quite literal nowhere-to-turn location, alongside Murray's honesty and the dialogue's hushed, understated tones, is something that is real and stands out as such in a movie with such a broad tone. Bloom is broken, he's done, and he's not willing to play any longer. It's a candid moment, and it's really special. And while Schwartzman carries this film, I can't help but focus on Murray's performance in this instead.
What's the secret, Max?
For better or worse, this role really started the trend of Wes Anderson and his featured guest star alumni, something that I feel used to add to an Anderson picture rather than supplement its own toy box pretentiousness. Proven character actors performing intriguing and off-center creations with real and sharp edges. None shown better than Murray's listless and downtrodden Herman Bloom here. Rushmore being Anderson's second feature really cemented the kooky Anderson trademark style too, like its inventive use of titles and symmetry in its framing, to which he would only continue with to this day.
This one's just quirky, and it comes at a time when there's a sort of, maybe there's a little bit sameness, you know, and it has an original feeling that in the market where it just looks so different and it's executed so differently.
In 1996, 2 years earlier than the release of Rushmore, Bill Murray and his then wife Margaret Kelly would finalise their divorce. Earlier, having worked with Howard Ramis on 93's Groundhog Day, as Murray and Kelly were separating, Ramis would note of Murray's difficulty on set.
Does he show up on time? Well, we always know where he is. Getting him out of that motorhome can be difficult.
He said, at times, Bill was just really irrationally mean and unavailable. He was constantly late on set. What I'd want to say to him is just what we tell our children. You don't have to throw tantrums to get what you want, just say what you want.
I don't worry about anything anymore.
What makes you so special? Everybody worries about something.
That's exactly what makes me so special.
In 1997, Bill Murray remarried to Jennifer Butler after the two had had an affair. This combination of emotions, so recent no less, would only greatly play into his role of Rushmore's Herman Bloom, a man who was also wealthy, married, and simultaneously having an affair.
Not that we were trying to make people cry in this one, but I just think it's easier to play to, you know, that sadness is so much easier to evoke in people because they're closer to it most of the time.
Infamously, Murray even wrote a check for Anderson to be able to achieve a specific helicopter shot, just like his on-screen character writes a check for Max.
I'll give you $2,500.
Okay.
So he wants to get out, but the idea that an older man wants to be friend with a high school kid, that's a guy who wants to start over again. He wants to cut off the limb he's on and go back to the root somewhere. He wants to get back down. And I've had that feeling many times that I wished I could cut it off and start over.
Murray was essentially living the character, and I'm sure this elevator scene would have felt very, very real in that moment. Finally, after the kiss chase of the preceding montage, we're back in the protagonist's universe. And with that, we see the stakes entirely shift too. For the very first instance in the runtime, we see Max actually feel some kind of guilt for what he's done. And as such, the viewpoint morphs and the film's tone changes as its character does too. Finally, after all the warring, this gives our two characters a moment to realize their wounds. It's an instance of hush for the narcissistic and power-hungry Max as he realizes the effect that his actions can cause. Simultaneously, we are given both Bloom's lowest moment, and from that observation, Max's turning point. His need simply to change his ways. This man is the only equal Max has ever come up against, not to mention a father figure and for the most part a friend. And despite all that, Max has only willingly participated in destroying him.
It's the first one that I can remember where I was really played somebody that was old enough to have children, in a way. I mean, I was old enough always probably, but the first one where I was definitely someone who could have been relating to his own son.
Before this point, Max stood alongside his father's barbershop, unsure of its existence and so far away from his own viewpoint, to now, 1 hour into the runtime, as a humble employee. Ironically, it's almost like a societal demotion for the boy. So ego-ridden, this part-time job is a sobering slap in the face that was desperately needed for someone so drunk on his own need for domination. This, I imagine, is the first hard day's work in Max's whole life. And it finally gives him a taste of what actual reality is like. Not to mention what it's like to have to listen, take orders no less. In this case, from his boss, his dad. Whilst both characters are pursuing the same woman, by this point it's only Max's dogged narcissism and limited life experience that was keeping him in the running whatsoever. Whilst he truly believes he wants to sleep with Miss Cross, played by Olivia Williams, he is entirely unsuited as a current pupil and decades her junior.
What do you really think is going to happen between us? Do you think we're going to have sex?
He is instead simply trying to replace the maternal figure that he's been robbed of. In turn, the blow of Herman missing his shot with this woman hurts all the more for Bloom, as unlike Max, she is an actual real possibility of a worthwhile loving relationship. Something that will sting all the more after the infidelity of his current marriage and the clear distaste at the outcome of it. Well, that was fun, wasn't it? Good old essay on a film that's 20 years old. Oh, nice and up to date, John. I've just finished the screenplay. Here's its current poster. Looks good, doesn't it? Crisp. Oh, fresh. I only mention it because it's very like Rushmore. It takes a lot of emotions from it. It's very similar to Rushmore. So you should follow me on Twitter because of that. I've got a link below. And if you haven't subbed already and you've just randomly found this video, why not subscribe? Welcome. I'm really hoping for 1,000 subscribers by the end of 2021. That'd be nice. So yeah, stick around. We're doing The Simpsons next. It should be a lot of fun. The end.